All right, let's gavel in and begin. This hearing is virtual, so first a few housekeeping items. During the meeting, the chair or staff designated by the chair may mute participants' microphones when they are not under recognition for the purposes of eliminating background noise. Members are responsible for muting and unmuting themselves. If I notice you have not unmuted when recognized, I may ask the staff to send you a request to unmute. Please accept that. I remind all subcommittee members as well as the witnesses testifying that the 5-minute clock applies. If there's a video or technology issue, we will move to the next member until the issue is resolved, and you will retain the balance of your time. You will notice a clock on your screen that will show how much time is remaining. At 1 minute remaining, the clock will turn to yellow. 30 seconds remaining, I will tap the gavel to remind members that their time's almost expired. When your time is expired, the clock will turn red, and I will begin to recognize the next member. As is customary, we will begin with the chair and ranking member. Then subcommittee members present at the time the hearing is called to order will be recognized in order of seniority. Finally, subcommittee members not present at the time the hearing is called to order will be recognized. House rules require me again to remind you we have set up an email address to which members may send anything they wish to submit in writing for any of the subcommittee's hearings or markups. The email address has been provided in advance to your staff. This subcommittee will come to order. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we welcome you to the Commerce, Justice, and Science Fiscal Year 2023 Member Day hearing. I am pleased to be joined today by our colleagues here in the House. Our subcommittee has heard from several major CJS agencies about their FY23 funding requests, and we will now hear from members representing the American people about their priorities within the programs and agencies funded in our bill. The CJS subcommittee is responsible for the appropriations and oversight of federal agencies that play a critical role in driving technological innovation, economic development, scientific research, a fair justice system, and the advancement of public safety. The events of the past 2 years have brought the importance of all of these endeavors into sharp relief. Funding for science has been critical to the development of COVID-19 vaccines and therapies. Investment in commerce will help steer our economic recovery, and a continued federal government commitment to supporting law enforcement will address calls for the reforms and investments needed to keep our communities safe. All congressional districts across the United States and its territories have a stake in our work, and all have unique needs and interests. I do look forward to hearing from my colleagues today about the programs making a difference in their communities. And with that, I will turn it over to my friend, the ranking member, Mr. Adderholt, for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for yielding, and thanks for organizing this important Members' Day hearing so that we can hear from members of the House on opportunities before the subcommittee and convey their recommendations and how they can educate us on how we can better be helpful through our subcommittee. Of course, the Subcommittee on Commerce, Justice, and Science and related agencies oversees a remarkable and uniquely important federal funding from space exploration to combating crime and including child exploitation and human trafficking, to fostering fair trade, promoting innovation, improving weather forecasting, and investing in basic research. It's vital that members have an opportunity to express their priorities and concerns. And let me just say, I'm always happy to hear from my fellow colleagues, as I know you are, Mr. Chairman, about how our subcommittee can be more helpful and can reach out across all 50 states, and we can make sure that we are doing our job and making sure the agencies under our jurisdiction are doing the same. So I would like to thank each of my colleagues who's taken time to join us for the schedule today, and I look forward to hearing from each of them. Thank you.
Mr. Adderholt, at this time, we're going to take testimony from the witnesses, and we are going to allow questions of the witnesses if members of the subcommittee choose to ask them. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce and recognize Congressman Earl Blumenauer from the 3rd Congressional District of Oregon, a senior member of the House Ways and Means Committee. Mr. Blumenauer, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Adderhall, members. It is a pleasure for me to take advantage of this opportunity you've given us to speak to priorities that we would like you to consider, as it relates. As states, territories, and tribes take action to address the failed and discriminatory war on drugs, Congress has a responsibility to heed the public's call for these reforms through the annual appropriation process. My top priority this fiscal year is language in the base text that would bar the Department of Justice from prosecuting those who comply with their state or tribal marijuana laws. I hope you will also maintain the current language that bars the Department of Justice from prosecuting those who comply with their state's marijuana laws. This has been an important development that the committee has championed in the past. Congress has enacted appropriations language to protect the implementation and operation of state legal medical marijuana nearly a decade. Today, 37 states have enacted medical marijuana programs and 18 states have acted to legalize adult use programs, with 8 of these states enacting adult use programs just since the start of 2020. States from coast to coast across the political spectrum, red and blue, have taken meaningful action to end prohibitory policies and allow the development of both adult use and medical marijuana programs. Most of these laws were decided by ballot initiatives themselves. The federal government should not interfere with these programs and the will of the voters in each of these states. The Department of Justice interference in state and tribal legal marijuana popular, and it's a waste of limited resources. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said as much last month in testifying before the Senate Appropriations Committee, saying that the Department of Justice prosecutions against those using marijuana in compliance with state, territory, or tribal laws is, quote, not an efficient use of resources. At the same time, as you are undoubtedly aware, public support for ending the prohibition of marijuana is at an all-time high. 9% of Americans favor prohibition, including a strong 62% majority of Republicans. Part of this played out in recent election in your home state, Mr. Chairman, of Pennsylvania, where the issue and a defining element for the overwhelmingly successful candidate last night. These protections for state and tribal programs have also passed on the floor of the House twice, each time with strong bipartisan majorities. 267, 5 in 2019, and in 2020 with 254 votes and only 163 opposed. These provisions are critical popular steps in supporting the progress have taken to address the wrongs of the failed and discriminatory war on drugs. This is something that is overwhelmingly supported by the public and supports the federal system we have. The American people have been demanding a change to our outdated cannabis laws for years, and it is well past time that Congress heed their calls and ensure the protection of state, legal, territory, and tribal cannabis reforms. This is entirely consistent with House action, with public support, and common sense. Past practice in some of these instances for the committee. I deeply appreciate your courtesy in permitting me to make this point to you and would welcome your support in including this in the base text. Comments or any follow-up that you might want.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenauer. And we do have your written testimony that will be entered into the record. At this time, I will open the floor for questions for any of the members of the subcommittee. If you have a question, signify by raising your hand or doing the hand raise icon. Hearing no questions and seeing no hands raised, Mr. Blumenauer, I appreciate your testimony. And Mr. Adderholt, did I see you expressing interest in questioning the witness?
No, I'm good. I appreciate Congressman Blumenauer's testimony, and thanks for checking in.
Thank you, Representative Blumenauer. Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you for your courtesy and consideration.
Yes, sir. At this time, the chair is happy to see that Representative Robin Kelly of the 2nd District of Illinois is with us. She is the Vice Chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee of the U.S. House, as well as a member of the Oversight Committee. And significantly, she is co-chair of the House Gun Violence Prevention Task Force. And at this time, it's my pleasure to recognize Representative Robin Kelly for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the ranking member for holding this Member Day hearing today. I would like to take this time to discuss my appropriations funding request of $750 million for community-based gun violence prevention. The communities I represent on the south side of Chicago, let's turn this up a little more. On the south side of Chicago, in the south suburbs, know gun violence all too well. Every Monday morning, the Chicago Sun-Times Wire reports the number of gunshot victims from the weekend. This past weekend, 33 people were shot in Chicago and 5 died, including a 16-year-old young man. These killings don't usually make national news, but weekends like this are far too common in the Chicagoland area. Communities across the U.S. share this reality, especially Black and Brown communities, which are disproportionately affected by gun violence. The residents of these communities, the victims and their loved ones, are forced to deal with the traumatic aftermath of violence. And in many communities, the violence does not stop. Community-based gun violence prevention programs, also known as Community Violence Intervention or CVI, can be implemented to effectively reduce violence through community-based strategies. CVI programs focus on preventing crime and shootings before they happen through establishing relationships with those at highest risk of being victims and or perpetrators of violence, while connecting them to crucial social and economic services to reduce the likelihood of gun violence as an answer to conflict. My funding request, supported by 119 members in the House, requests $375 million for the Office of Justice Programs Community Violence Intervention and Prevention Initiative. This funding will directly support community organizations that lead collaborations between community leaders, social service providers, law enforcement, and high-risk individuals to interrupt violence and bring change to their communities. The letter also requests $375 million for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Youth Violence Prevention Program to create a new community violence intervention initiative. This will allow the CDC to establish a grant program to support public health-focused community interventions, such as hospital-based violence interruption programs, which connect with survivors of violence in the hospital. The request also directs funding from other violence prevention programs, such as the Office for Victims of Crime or the Community Health Service Block Grant, to go toward reducing gun violence and helping gun violence victims. The elevated and sustained rates of gun violence incidents in this country, such as the ones we saw this past weekend, will have long-lasting effects on communities' mental, physical, and social health. This funding is imperative and will go to programs that have been shown to be effective. A study from the Journal of Trauma and Acute Care Surgery showed that CVI programs can reduce homicides by 60% in communities where they are implemented. One program operated by Cure Violence showed more than 63% reduction in shootings in the South Bronx communities that Cure Violence operated in, and a 100% reduction in 5 of the 8 Chicago communities they worked in. This $750 million in funding is an essential step in ending gun violence in the United States and in my district. I respectfully ask that the committee appropriate this funding for community-based gun violence prevention programs in FY23. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ranking Member.
Thank you, Representative Kelly. And again, I'm going to open it up to the members of the subcommittee. If any of you have questions for our witness. Seeing and hearing no questions. Representative Kelly, we thank you for your testimony. Be assured that your written testimony will be entered into the record. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
We do have a third witness slated for this afternoon, and it is Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, who has not come online yet. She may be in a committee hearing at this point. We'll give her a moment to get on if she's trying to get on. Okay. All right, as we wait for Representative Garcia, if there are folks from her office listening in, we do intend to include her entire submitted written testimony for the record. And I have that.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the Congresswoman's Legislative Director. She should be on her way in just a moment. She just concluded at Judiciary Committee. She'll be here any minute now. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll hold the record open for another 2 minutes and let her know. Thank you.
Thank you.
While we wait, Robert and Ben, I wanted to mention that I led a congressional delegation bus trip over to Arlington National Cemetery this morning to lay a wreath for Memorial Day, since this is the last week we'll be in before Memorial Day. The weather was majestic, and we went to the burial site of what was his name? General Pershing, General John Pershing, who I learned his nickname was Black Jack Pershing, and I couldn't think of why. And I looked it up. It took me a while to figure it out. In the 1890s, he trained and led black troops commonly known as Buffalo Soldiers, on the Northwest frontier, which I found interesting because my own father volunteered for Army duty in World War II, and that was before the desegregation of the armed services by Harry Truman. And my father led Black troops in World War II himself. Always treasured that experience, and it was Pershing who realized, the valor, the courage, the bravery of the Black troops that he commanded in the 1890s as a second lieutenant. And he remembered that, so that when he led the American Expeditionary Force in France, he insisted that troops of African descent from the American forces be integrated into the French lines. And he did that.
Interesting.
Well, this must have been a beautiful day to be out there.
It really was. I will do that next year too, and I hope you know you're invited. Arlington. Well, we have our witness who's come hustling over from another hearing, and I'm happy to welcome our colleague, Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia from the 29th District of Texas, a member of the Financial Services Committee and also the House Committee on the Judiciary. Representative Sylvia Garcia, you are most welcome here at the Commerce, Justice, and Science Subcommittee of Appropriations, and we're happy to recognize you for 5 minutes of testimony. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do apologize. We were having a long hearing in Judiciary. There was a little reshuffling around there because of some folks who needed to get to a press conference. But I also want to apologize. For some reason, the photo is reversed on the screen today, and I know that it doesn't appear that I'm following flag protocol, but the flag is really on my right side and not on the left. But I know that I'm always really concerned about that. My brother is a stickler for all that and gets really upset when people don't have the flags in the right place. But I do want to say that yes, I'm from Texas. I'm not just from Houston, but in fact, there are other cities that I represent, and that's South Houston, Pasadena. There is a Pasadena in Texas, Jacinto City, and Galena Park. First, I'm here to speak in support of one of my community project requests, a project on behalf of Houston Independent School District. This nearly $2 million project will strengthen the Houston's community pipeline of students who are engaged in planetary sciences that leverage NASA, Johnson Space Center, the Lunar Planetary Institute, and the Museum of Natural Science, and Rice University. These community institutions will partner with Houston ISD to allow kindergarten through 12th grade students the opportunity to learn more about careers in STEM and space from current undergraduate and graduate students. Graduate and undergraduate students will be trained on effective communication strategies and teach pedagogies to prepare them to bring current research and hands-on activities into HSC's classrooms. I would greatly appreciate the committee's consideration of this community project as we seek to get more young talent, and in particular young Latinos, on track for careers in space and STEM. Additionally, I want to flag for the committee a general programmatic request that I co-led with my colleague, Representative Scott Peters, requesting $65 million in funding for the NASA Space Grant Program. Space Grant is a competitive state-federal partnership that functions through consortia in all 50 states, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands, and the District of Columbia. The program enables students to engage in outreach activities and research projects that prepare them for STEM careers. The Texas Space Grant Consortium is part of NASA's National Space Grant College and Fellowship Program. In my district, I have 5 community colleges represented on campuses from 3 different school systems. And each of those systems are partners with NASA Space Grant Program. In Texas, This program is competitively awarded more than $2 million to more than 1,000 students for undergraduate STEM scholarships, STEM educator scholarships, and graduate fellowships. So this program is critically important in developing the next generation of STEM researchers and leaders in Texas. I appreciate your consideration on both of these requests, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And again, thank you all, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, and all the members for giving us this member day to talk about some of the priorities and concerns for this next budget cycle. Thank you. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Representative Garcia. And we do have your written testimony and requests for community project funding for the Houston Independent School District, as well as the regular programmatic request for the NASA Space Grant Program. We have accepted your written testimony, and it will be entered into the record in its entirety.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll open it up to the subcommittee to see if there are any questions for you. Seeing and hearing no obvious questions from our subcommittee members, I think you have escaped without interrogation. And Representative Garcia.
Klein would do it, since he's we were on a committee together, and I know he's a lawyer. I was expecting a cross-examination.
I miss judiciary, Sylvia, but the Appropriations Committee has taught me to be more genteel.
Okay.
And so it's good to see you, though.
Thank you.
Yes, Representative Garcia, the intervention on behalf of Mr. Klein is going well, and it's a well-reputed finishing school we have sent him to. But thank you for the temerity to invite his cross-examination. Again, we thank you for your remarks, and thank you for your testimony, and we're happy to excuse you. And seeing that there are no other witnesses, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, members of the subcommittee, I hereby declare this member hearing day adjourned.
Thank you all.